How many people can you really trust? Is there limits to the number of people that you can trust? In this episode, I will answer this with a definite yes. But to answer the question, how many, I'd have to say it's complicated. In this episode, I will uncomplicate things. I will explain what factors affect how many people you can trust and how much you can really trust them. This episode is a little philosophical, but would help you answer the question yourself. The answer will be based on several laws of trust, on the fact that trust is relative and dynamic, on what you have to lose, on time and intimacy, and believe it or not, the size of your brain. And yes, I will give you numbers. Welcome to The Trust Show. I'm Yoram Solomon, your host, the author of the Book of Trust, and facilitator of the Trust Habits Workshop. My mission is simple. I want to help you form habits that build your trustworthiness, because the answer to this question will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you? How much can you trust, and with what? The first law of trust is that trust is continuous. Well, you can trust more people with less or fewer people with more. So ask yourself, can you trust everyone with your life? No, but can you trust everyone with a $20 bill? Probably so. So you can have a high level of trust with 5 people, and a much lower level of trust with a lot more, because trust is continuous. Trust is also contextual. How many people would you trust in a restaurant serving you food? Probably pretty much everybody in that position. How many people do you trust flying a plane you're sitting on, or conducting surgery on you or on your kids? Much fewer, because trust is contextual. That's the second law of trust. So, how much and with what? It depends. It depends on how much trust you need to extend. That limits how many people you can put that level of trust. And I'll explain that more. And it depends in what. If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe to this channel, and get notified when I release more videos like this. Let me go back to my definition of trust. Trust is the level to which you're willing to accept the potential negative consequences of giving control over something you have to another person, expecting them to be able and to do their best to avoid those negative consequences. So it really comes down to how much you have to lose. And the first component is an objective one, and that is, how much risk are you in? What are the potential negative consequences to you? And this is objective because you are in that risk. So if you're at the risk of losing $20, you are at the risk of losing $20. But it's also, there is a subjective component to that, and that is, how much are you afraid of that? And that changes between one person to another. So for example, if I'm asking you to borrow $20 from you, how much are you afraid of the negative consequences? The negative consequences being that I'm not going to return the $20. The answer is, it depends on how much money you have. If all you have is $100 to your name in your bank account, giving me those $20, losing those $20 means losing 20% of what you own. What if you have $10 million? That's not even in the noise level, $20. So it's the same amount of what you have to lose, but it's just that you're not that afraid. And the level of fear that you have dictates how much trust do you need in that person to whom you give control, in this case, over the $20. There is a false story about this religious man who is in there is this flood and the water are starting to rise, and he goes and he climbs on the roof, the top of his roof, the roof of his house. And at some point, a neighbor comes around with a canoe and he says, hop on the canoe. And the religious man says, no, I don't need to hop on the canoe. I trust God. God will protect me. I will stay here. Then the police arrives with a boat and they say, hop on the boat. And he says, no, you go away. I trust God. I believe in God. God will take care of me. God will not let me drown. Then a rescue helicopter comes around and they drop a rope ladder, and they say, climb on the rope ladder, we'll save you. Because the water is really just getting, now they're at his feet. And he says, no, go away. I trust God. I believe in God. God will protect me. God would not let me drown. The water keeps rising and he drowns. And as he goes up to heaven, he goes to see God and he says, God, I believed in you. I trusted you. Why did you let me die? And God said, what do you want from me? I sent you a canoe. I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. What else do you want? There are 4 types of people, things that we trust. We trust God. Different people at different levels. We trust ourselves. We trust other people. And we trust things. And the level of trust that we have that is really dictated by what we have to lose and how much we're afraid of that has to be spread among those entities. Some people trust God less and trust themselves more. Some people trust themselves less and trust other people more. But the total is the same. The total is fixed because it depends on what risk you're at, what do you have to lose, and how afraid are you by it. And so it's really a zero-sum game. This is the amount of risk I'm at, this is how much I'm afraid of it. So therefore, this is the level of trust or how much trust I need to expend. And trust one element more, you trust others less. Trust one less, you trust others more. You can even break it down. If you take people, for example, you may be trusting one type of people more than another type of people, one person more than another person, and it's a zero-sum game. The total remains the same because the total has to compensate for the level of fear you have of the objective risk that you're exposed to. You know how I told you that it actually relates to the size of your brain? Well, Robin Dunbar, who is a British anthropologist and evolutionary psychologist, he did a study. He studied the size of our neurocortex, part of our brain, in not just in people, in different species, and he correlated that to the size of social networks that they have. And I'm not talking Facebook. He did the study before Facebook was ever created. But what he found, he actually put it in a formula, an algebraic formula that you can find in the Book of Trust. I actually cited his research. And what he said was that we have, on average, humans, based on the size of our neurocortex, we have 150 what he calls casual friends. So your friends on Facebook, are they casual friends? So this is really a matter of definition. How did he define casual friends? Those are people that you do more than just put a name to a face. There's probably 1,500 people you can put a name to a face, but only 150 that you know who they are, you know enough about them, you can trust them at a certain level. And then there is a much wider number of people that you may not even be able to connect name to a face and you still call them friends. So our brain actually limits the amount of these types of connections. And that is one of the reasons why, as I said before, you are limited in how many people you can trust at different levels. I'm going to give you another reason why the number of people that you can trust really at a very high level is limited, or overall is limited. And I'm going to start with the fact that trust is dynamic. If you followed my model of what makes a person trustworthy, you remember that there are 2 groups of parameters or components. The who you are, which is your competence, your personality compatibility with me, and the symmetry of our relationship. And then there is the what you do. And the what you do is the what you do during an interaction. Every time we interact, what do you do? That starts with positivity. Positivity sets the tone. If I consider your interaction with me to be positive, then we can start building trust. If I consider it negative, well, obviously I'm not going to trust you more. It's more the more time I spend with you, I'm not going to trust you more because your interaction with me is negative. And I'm probably just going to stop it. So let's assume the starting point is that your interaction with me is positive. Time and intimacy, but I'll start with time, accelerates the building of trust. The more time I spend with you and I get exposed to your positivity, right? The more time I spend with you, the more frequently I spend time with you, the faster I'm going to trust you, or the faster the trust that I have in you is going to grow. Same applies to intimacy. I can communicate with a lot of people through email because, it's very quick. I sit by the computer, I type for, 20 seconds, I send a message, I interacted with you. But that's not the kind of interaction that builds or that accelerates building trust enough. The in-person, one-on-one, face-to-face interaction is the fastest way to build trust. This is when we can see body language, we can see the consistency of body language and with the words that you use or what you're saying. We can tell that you mean what you say. But again, this kind of goes back to time, and this is why the two are combined, time and intimacy. How much time, how much intimacy can I spend with everybody, with all of my, 3,000 Facebook friends? Not so much. So I'm limited in my ability to accelerate that building of trust to only a few people. That's one other reason why you're limited by how many people can you really trust and overall trust at different levels. Okay, you're not going to let me off the hook without actually giving you a number, okay? So 4.6, how's that as a number? I'll get back to that. Obviously, it depends on how much you trust. And through the previous sections, I told you what dictates the level of trust. And it's really because of what you have to lose and because of the risk and your fear of that risk and what you have to lose. But the more you need to trust people, the fewer people you can trust. Think of it as a pyramid. As the level of trust goes up, the number of people at that level goes down because the area of that pyramid stays the same, or triangle stays the same. Why? Because it's correlated to what you have to lose overall. Have you ever thought about why an elite special forces unit, whether it's Navy SEALs, Delta, or Israeli Defense Forces units that I served in, why do they only have 4 or 5 members in a small team? One, because this is the smallest cohesive unit that they spend a lot of time together. When I interviewed a Navy SEAL for the Book of Trust and he was telling me about 4 people, he also told me that they spend 7 years together at a very high amount of time, a very large amount of time, but also at very high intimacy. I mean, they're downrange in Afghanistan. It doesn't get more intimate than that. You don't get to know people and how they behave in situations worse than these. If you think about the military unit, so if you take an army division has about 1,500 soldiers, a battalion has 500, a company has 150, a platoon has 50, a squad has 15. And the level of trust that you have with people at those different levels actually increases and increases until you get to the team level of 4 and 5. That's why the smaller the team is, the higher the level of trust you can build. Of course, depending on how much time you spend with them and how intimate you get with them. I read articles. I reviewed a lot of articles about the ideal size of a team. Oddly enough, they never talked about trust, but they talked about the productivity and the creativity of a team, probably not realizing that trust is the foundation for those. And it's really that the level of trust is higher at the smaller team. Different articles suggested that the high performance, high creativity teams would be about 5 to 12 members in size. Some focus on 5. One article actually said that the number is 4.6. That's the 4.6 I told you. So from my personal experience, if you want a high productivity, high creativity team, the right number is just about 5. This is the shorter video version of the Trust Show podcast. You can listen to the full episode anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts.